So if you sat through the first one, which you think y'all did or at least heard it, I got to give you a heads up, and it was designed specific for a reason. You're going to find that there is re- repetition in class 2 from class 1. Now think in sports. And in baseball, you reach home plate. So to get home, you got to do what? You're running. What is running? But a series of repetitive movements. Repetition, when you deal with this, is very important. So yes, you're going to hear some similar things you heard last time. But what's ironic, I don't know if it's ironic, it's kind of funny. We were talking about this yesterday. It's almost like an ID episode. If you've ever seen ID, the crime show, that in this case, we're going to say, for lack of a better word, an act of darkness is what really catapulted the Nag Hammadi into the spotlight. Remember I told you about Muhammad Ali, the farmer who was actually the one behind finding them when they were looking for specific dirt for fertilizer? His father had been murdered, and they were going to avenge their father's death. Now, after they brought these, they found what they had. Because remember, when he hid the jar at first, they thought it could be a jinn, an evil spirit. So they were kind of leery. But then they got, then the human greed set in and they thought maybe there's gold. So they busted it open and they found these codices. When he took them home, he put them on a stray straw mat that his mom used. So she even burnt some of the writings in their fire. But let's fast forward a little bit in time, and they do avenge their father's death. It was that act that caused Muhammad to give what they had left to a monk, because he knew that there would be an interrogation and he didn't want the police to see what he had found. So it's just kind of funny, not funny as in the humor, but it's just how it kind of played out. Yeah. That it took an act like that to bring these back. Now, we do know that the ones found, and I'm trying to say it right. I learned this week it's pronounced Nag Hammadi, but we're in America, so it's Nag Hammadi. All right. The ones found were dated around 340. They know that by the leather binding. However, they were written in Coptic. For example, the original Gospel of Thomas was written in Greek. So these were not originals. We do know through history that they existed in the first century. They had, pieces, but they didn't know what they had. And they actually, starting in the 1700s, Gnostic writings started to surface throughout the globe. But again, not a lot of people knew what they had. Because it's funny, because when you say the word Gnosticism, you think of secret society, you think of mysticism. A lot of things come to mind. Hidden knowledge. But what you find is when you deep dive, all that secrecy is only on the surface. When you deep dive, the secrecy is no more, because your awareness starts to expand. All right. Theodos. Now, I had to write these notes again, because if not, I would screw these up. This is written, he wrote this around circa 140, 160. Who we were and what we have become, where we were, whether we are hastening from what we are being released, what birth is, and what is rebirth. See how it's written? So we're going to get more into that. All right. But what he's essentially saying is to know oneself at the deepest level is to concurrently know God. That was what was behind one person commented on the post yesterday. That's what that quote was about. See, that's why throughout history, it is so important to know thyself. And you're like, oh, I'm the dude in the mirror. No, that's not yourself. You got to go deeper. And to know that, according to the Gnostic writings, is to know God, because you are not separate. See, the roadmap for Gnostic ideology, the first is to recognize the divine within. And we've mentioned this before. If it makes perfect sense, because if you know in this incarnation you have the DNA of your mother and father, then why don't you have the spiritual DNA of your mother and father? That's why Jesus said, do your laws not say ye are gods? See, if you get around evangelicals today, or you go to a tent revival in July and it's really sweaty and the comb over guys up there, that's why I like to call evangelical preachers comb overs. And they're saying that this idea is new age mumbo jumbo. It's about as old as their own religion, and actually goes back earlier. Because we talked last time about all the writings and how Jesus spoke in parables and riddles and so forth. Look at the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is written in a different form, obviously, but there is puzzles in it, because it's Arjuna is the puzzle. Put yourself in Arjuna's thing, and you know that you've got to go to battle. And what you are facing are loved ones, relatives, people you've known your whole life. See, that's not, if you're really into the story, you see that that's not just a cut and dry. That plays on your emotion. So nothing is literally been just laid out except for the messages you hear on Sunday night, Sunday morning, Wednesdays. Monday was visitation. What you hear from someone on a pulpit is a direct message. And that is not what the Gnostics were about. Right. Now, another one, monoemus. See, I had to write these down because I never get it. Says, abandon the search for God in the creation and the other matters of a similar sort. Look for him by taking yourself as the starting point. Learn who it is within you who makes everything his own and says, my God, my mind, my thought, my soul, my body. Learn the sources of sorrow, joy, love, and hate. And if you carefully investigate these matters, you will find him in yourself. Now, of course, you can see how these kind of statements got the early church fathers in a tiss. And think about it, like Irenaeus, we're going to talk about him. I often joke, but we don't know anything about this guy except he wrote like 6 books on heresy. His whole focus was to annihilate the Gnostic movement. But we don't know anything else about this guy. He may be somebody you would not let touch your remote control. I mean, let's be honest. Who was it? One of the guys in Ezekiel, was it, who ate like crap? I mean, so you got to think of it. We don't know anything about him. And what I do love about the parallel book, the one that I always tell people about, that the academics started in like the 1870s, and they took all the parallel myths. I love it because they, even back then, didn't really touch Gnostic writings, but they did say, all we know is what the church has released. And we know where that went. That's why these things were buried. So what he was saying is self-knowledge is knowledge of God. Now you can see how this does not fit the blue pill agenda. Another thing you've got to take into effect before we get into these is the Gospel of Thomas, which we'll get to like the month after. A reference written by his identical twin, Thomas. All right. So then you can see throughout history, academics have been trying to figure out, did Jesus have a twin? Because that's what it says. Now, maybe if they would take a piece from the Gnostic literature, open up their damn mind, they would see, because Jesus says this when he was talking to a disciple, I am not your master. because you have become drunk from the bubbling stream which I have measured out. He who will drink from my mouth will become as I am. I myself shall become he, and the things that are hidden will be revealed to him. We will become identical. So was Thomas just enlightened? Because what would you say back then? How would you express if they're both the same? Maybe you would call them a twin. Because that is one of the things that Jesus said in the Gospel of Thomas. You will become equal. All right. All right. One of the things I got to correct for myself last week is that Pisces faith is not the opposite as in the Aeon of Sophia. There was two things I found. One was thelatus, which is desire and will, or according to On the Origin of the World of and Astrophaeus, whatever that is. It was that, and I've also found it as Christus, not Christos, but Christus. So, I mean, I was showing Sam some like diagrams about the aeons. That's way above my pay grade. I couldn't figure it out. So,
Are these all from the?
Gnostic writing.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Because remember, in the New Testament, the message Jesus talks about illusion. What do we learn about in the Bhagavad Gita when you study Hinduism? There are two elements to this realm: spirit and Maya. Maya is illusion. And so that's what one of the key things to take from the Nag Hammadi for their messages, that Jesus was not a redeemer. He is a revealer. He's revealing you the path. He did not come to die for your sins. Now, again, we mentioned last time, if you think of it, you could argue that because the original meaning of sin is to miss the mark, which means you're not getting it. You're missing what I'm trying to say. But he did not do any of that for what we've been taught. At least that's not their approach. Just like we mentioned for Judaism, for Jewish mysticism and Gnosticism, Seth is the revealer. So you can look at all these and find who the revealers were, right? For some reason, the Orthodox Church chose to take a whole different approach. And we'll get back into that when we conclude. Because we kind of started last time with it, if you remember the politics. All right. Now, what you also find in this, in the Gospel of Q, which is this one, and the New Testament, is you will find information sprinkled, but not in the dialogue that is in the Gnostic writings. One of the things we're going to touch on today is the power of the divine feminine. In Thunder, written from a female point of view, there's a line that says, I am the whore and the holy one. Think about how many times we've talked in just discussions that we experience everything, have to experience everything. Now, Shelley made a good point yesterday. Well, if we're all connected, we do all experience everything. Yes. But in this case, I would think differently. Because when you also look at Gnostic writings and they make reference to the bridal chamber, the bridal chamber is traditionally where the male or the groom and the bride fuse, right? When they're referencing the bridal chamber, it's when the soul and spirit fuse. So in that, that's why I would argue yes. But if it was just one shot at this, then I would say yes, we're all one, so we all experience it. But we all have been here before. It's like the old saying, it's not your first rodeo. So I believe it's because it's kind of like I had that theory, how Sophia had the thought without her counterpart. So she threw it out into chaos and creates the demiurge. To a similar idea that when you agree that you're going to enter a physical body in this realm. Now it's important about this realm because there's polarity in this realm. right? So it's a great realm to learn. So when you do that, because, not all ascended masters, not everyone, or not all energies, not all entity agree to come into human form. It's a challenge, right? The human emotion can spark a lot of things. So I believe that when we do that, we kind of throw the thought, we're going, boom. And in that, we establish the soul for us. 'Cause I like to look at the soul as like the faucet of the body. It keeps things. So it's kind of like it's that little link pin between our spirit and our physicalness. Because like kind of in the records, the records are stored your soul since its first incarnation. And when you're not in body, you don't have a need. There's no need for the records. That's why you don't read anyone who's passed. You don't read anyone who is in a coma. You don't do any of that. They don't need it. And so you see, that's why I think that we each have to experience that. And that's why I think she was referencing the divine feminine speaking from thunder, because there's a lot more to it in the poem that's in there. And then you've got the pearl, another great Gnostic rite, Egypt. All right. So it kind of lays all these foundations of what we're talking about. Now, Irenaeus, um, we know the gospel. One of the things we know it existed in the first century is because he actually mentions the gospel of truth. And he also mentions this idea of gnosis, that they have more gospels than we have. So he is slamming them in the first century. So we know that these books existed. Okay. He also accused, and you're going to love this because there's also accusation that Thomas, all right, we know that, well, it's not really an accusation. They kind of have an idea that the author of the Gospel of Thomas had been to India. Now, I would also argue that you have around 30 years of Jesus' life unaccounted for. We know he went to Egypt to escape Herod. So his family took him to Egypt. We do know in folklore that there's a theory that Issa or Isa, ISSA, is the name of the Himalayan scrolls in reference to Jesus, because it would have fit the time period and it was a visitor. But now check this out. This is from Hippolytus. Hippolytus. There you go. Greek-speaking Christian in Rome. He knew of the Indian Brahmins and included in their tradition heresy, because his reference to the gospel was this: there is among the Indians a heresy of those who philosophize among the Brahmins, who live a self-sufficient life. They say that God is light, not like the light one sees, nor like the sun, nor fire, but to them God is discourse, not that which finds expression in articulate sounds, but that of knowledge, gnosis, through which the secret mysteries of nature are perceived by the wise. So we also know that so we know in the Gnostic writings we talked about last month, there's a Hindu Buddhist flair in some of the writings. There's also the mysticism, Egyptian, Plato, all these take account into Gnostic writings. But I just found it amazing. What? Oh, that they mentioned that. All right. Any questions on that? Y'all understand the Brahmins? So you see, the Orthodox Church had a lot of ammo. But as we left off last time, the institution is cracking. All right. Scandals, hypocrisy, dogma. These are all things that are making people leave the church. Now, I mentioned also in the previous slide, if you recall, the Dwapara Yuga. It's the Hindus, the yugas, and it's 12,000 years ascending, descending from consciousness. And we're on the upswing of Dwapara Yuga, which is self-interest, the age of energy and self-interest. So one of the things that Sri Yugaswara wrote in 1894, The Holy Science, is that we will find new forms of energy in these 3,200 years. The only warning was self-interest. Self-interest, I would argue, is one of the reasons why the institution's cracking, because you guys are not stupid, right? You're starting to say things that, oh, I'm not drawn to that, but I'm drawn to this. Let me dig deeper. And now that we have the internet, things like that, your quest speeds up. It's just my theory. We already know about the scandals. Here's what's funny is I put this on, and yes, this is the slides I ended last time. So that's what I'm starting. I put this on even before we saw Disclosure Day. I knew it was coming, but that's true. Now, at that point, the Catholic Church, nothing had been said because I wholeheartedly believe that the Catholic Church believes, except 2 weeks ago. An archbishop and exorcist priest in the United States was fired by the Vatican because he made a comment agreeing with our vice president that aliens were demons. That's the only, most of these headlines deal with Protestants. But you see the church as itself, when we say church, because of history, it's in reference to the Catholic Church. So if you're sitting there, you're listening to this and you're Protestant and you're getting all irate, you got to live with it, man. You got to live with it. And if you're Protestant and you really don't think Catholics are Christian, then you need to look at 98% of your foundation is based in Catholicism because of the councils. So you can't get away from it. So why there are over 38,000 different sects of Christianity? I mean, look at today. You could be a Mormon doing your 2-year mission in Thailand is how one of the books said. You could be, an African priest in Ethiopia. Just look. You could be quote Christian. There's so many different variations. Now, here's something. If you are really holding the truth, now this is important because remember, we're a realm of polarity. So the argument is there is never an absolute truth because what you find true, you may disagree with because it's not your truth. And in this realm, that is accurate, right? But if you do have the truth, the unarguably truth, why do you hide it? You only hide what you don't want people to see. And if you're really trying to build an empire, an institution, and it's something sacred, would you not want people to see? You're going to validate, right? Unless you have something to hide. It's a weakness. It's a weakness, yes. And so as we went through all this, you can understand why these books were deemed heresy. It did not fit the agenda identified in 325. And what's so crazy about all this, the mysticism. We know that Paul ran into the spiritual Jesus, never met the physical. We know there's also debate when Jesus, quote, resurrected, that he ate broiled fish. Well, nothing of spirit can eat. So that would have been a physical. So you see, you have miscalculations, misguided events or details of events that took place around the same time. So what was it? It just amazes me that they won't say anything about mysticism except, and a lot of their whole foundation is based on mysticism, just like the Gnostics. I mean, you're talking about a physical world, a world of matter in which they believed, and so did Plato. So it's not like it was just them that believed that it was not the true creator that created this universe because there's too much suffering in this universe. That's why I love reading the books that came out of Nag Hammadi because you get them from perspectives. There's one that's written from the perspective of the snake. There's one that points out Eve is the mother of all living things. You don't get that in Genesis because Eve's the one who betrayed humanity. Now think of it this way. If the God in Genesis, in the Old Testament, in the Garden of Eden, was the all-knowing, why would it say that he had to say, Adam, where art thou? He would have fucking known where he was, right? But he didn't. That was a question because they were hiding, right? After they realized what they'd done. So from a Gnostic point of view, it was the true creator from the pleroma fullness, the first thought that was in the serpent. Right. Because it was what really took place in the Garden of Eden. Humanity was freed. Based on their story. Now, I'm not getting into the ETs because, I talked. The Sumerian creation story blows me away and I love it. We're talking about Genesis, the Garden of Eden, paradise, as long as you follow the rules. So you see, the whole story, which if you actually read Genesis, there's 2 creation stories, which doesn't make sense. But the whole story is like, hey, yes, man.
No, go ahead. Finish.
Oh,
No.
we're going to imprison you in this beautiful thing, but you can't leave.
You got all the rules.
You got to follow the rules.
Yeah,
And yet, I, and I'm speaking not to be blasphemous, even though, first thing is recognition of the divine within. I am God. I created this for you. I gave you free will. Just don't effing leave. And don't you dare eat from that tree, which became an apple in the 4th century. But does that make any sense to anyone when you look at it the way it is? I love you unconditionally.
I've put the tree there.
Right. And why'd you tell me not to eat from the tree? Because if I say don't think of a pink elephant, how many of you just thought of a pink elephant? You tell your kids, don't eat a cookie before dinner. You did. I was eating cookies before dinner.
And even named the tree is a tree of knowledge, right?
Well, and from
Go
a
ahead.
psychological perspective, the subconscious cannot process negatives. So when you say don't eat the cookie, all you hear is eat the cookie. Yeah. When you say don't spill the milk, all you hear is spill the milk. Yeah.
And then it happens because you're speaking
Yes.
to
But
existence.
But here's something else, and I maybe a weird random thought,
It's never weird or random.
but us discussing this just now, I realized that you can take the entire encapsulation of the church just out of the first few passages in Genesis. This idea of paradise is here for you as long as you do exactly these things and you don't question it.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I'd had that realization before just now.
And as
Never heard an experience.
as the revealer said, Jesus, be like little children. And what do little children do?
Ask
Oh,
questions.
yeah.
Ask all kinds of questions. But as we've talked separately, it was worse for those who went to Catholic school. You don't dare ask questions.
Listen, anything.
Exactly. So, in other words, you are programmed. You are blue pill, blue pill, blue pill. We're talking about the Matrix. Because if you didn't listen to the first, red pill is Gnosticism, blue pill is Orthodox.
It wasn't by
No, I know. You missed that joke. I was like, when I first said blue pill, I was like, oh, I feel like a kid.
My thing was if the Garden of Eden was perfect, it was made this way for Adam and Eve.
Right.
To enjoy it. To enjoy it and all that. But they had to follow the rules and all these things. How did the snake get in there? That was always my thing. Like, how did the snake get? It was created.
Snake's like
why? How did the
friendly
snake?
trees.
Like it was protected and created.
And then, of course, we get the old story. That's why women have to go through all the pain of childbirth, and the snake is forever going to crawl on the
And
ground.
But what about like other female animals? They didn't eat of a tree, and their females still have to go through the pain of childbirth. So they just get it by extension.
if even
Hey, I feel you. Not in this incarnation. I'm sure I've given birth.
And
to
even though,
ate the apple, why is it in Adam's throat?
yeah.
Yeah.
And even though
Why do men
then
have Adam's apples?
Eve ate the apple, and then they basically condemned the women, but then also Adam was basically blamed for he kind of carried this, this burden like men.
But we
But
should have
then,
to.
and then they went from this paradise, and then they went to a place of like hard labor, and everything was difficult. But when you think about the Anunnakis and how they created us for labor, for work. So, and it's to me in my brain, it's like, wait a minute. So they're saying this Garden of Eden, and the garden is there, and it's all perfect. But at the end, when there's this, God knew that we were gonna disobey and eat from the tree. But then the punishment was to have a life of hard labor, work, and everything, which to me was like that was that's where we were created from.
Now remember,
we were created for that, for work.
right? But
So it
now,
went to that.
from a biblical standpoint, the Gnostics would say that the reason the God of Genesis did not know all that because it was an arrogant God. They were only half divine and half chaos. That's why there shall be no other God before me, because they're also a jealous God. A lot of human attributes. To me, divine is not jealous, and they even pulled out in the writings. There is no purpose for the divine to be jealous. So all these vengeance and all that, and one of the things I had mentioned, people leaving the church, believe it or not, white dudes wearing MAGA hats to church. That was one of the stories I read. People are leaving church because these white dudes show up their "Make America Great Again" hat to church. Well, it's very Old Testament. That's what I was going with. That's why the Gnostics say he really was ignorant and didn't know all these things.
Who's he? God?
The original God, the God they call the demiurge, who created this, that garden really was ignorant. That's why the true energy of first thought from the pleroma,
Well, sorry.
because it's also that God who gave us spirit, not the demiurge. Demiurge couldn't get shit working.
I look at how you say
Right.
but as soon as we face that,
And I just like one of the things, and I know we kind of, but I like one of the things for me that I just, now that I see it, I can never ever unsee it, is this idea that an all knowing, all loving creator made us knowing that we were going to screw up, knowing that we were going to have all these terrible hardships. And, the Bible uses the parent child analogy a lot. And I've said this a billion times. I look at my kids and I think, is there anything that I would do to purposely put them in harm's way? Anything to purposely make their lives difficult? Anything to purposely cause them pain and hurt? No, I'm not saying that I don't, because I am a person and I'm not, a divine, all higher level, I guess I am, but not in this body. Am I an all knowing, all seeing? But then, if you know all this, then you mean you created us to purposely be cruel
It's
to
like
us?
he's according to that, it's like he set us for failure.
Yes.
Like this is the tree, you can't eat it, but it's a tree of knowledge and all these things, but you can't eat it.
Yeah, but
And
then
it's a
he
fruit.
knows, right? He knows if he's all
And then we're
knowing,
like
he knows
everything
we're
you
gonna do it.
think, everything you think about is like,
This is
man,
what
I'm
got
a
me
piece of
kicked
that.
out of religion class in senior year every freaking day almost, because we were just asking questions and putting things together, and they'd get pissed and kick us out of class. We were just starting shit. Like,
Yeah.
we're asking you questions.
we
were.
he doesn't want you to come forward on your knees.
Right.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. It just especially, like I said, once I saw that, I could not unsee it. It's just, wait, why would you do that? Like, I wouldn't be cruel. I wouldn't be, not even my kids. I mean, I wouldn't be that cruel to you or you. I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm going to bring you into creation so you can suffer. It's like a kid,
It's like, hey, you
burning an
could
ant with a magnifying
well, you
glass.
could
Why
be in
would you
this
do
room right here.
You started to sing.
Don't put this plate of rice and beans. Don't touch it. I'm like, rice and beans. I'm like, the hell with the
You
fast-
put that mean to me, I can tell you that right now. I can see it.
Another thing that's kind of crazy, and this has nothing to do with it, just we're around the Orthodox, the Apostles' Creed, which some actually believe was written in a joint effort by the 12 apostles. But ironically, it was first stated by St. Ambrose around 390. All right. I'm not the brightest person in the world, but I don't think that at 390 would have been what? 1,700 years ago. I don't think we were living as long as they did in the Sumerian days. So I don't think any apostles would be around in 390. And when they said, I believe in Jesus Christ, his only son, I know that had to have been postscript 325 because it wasn't until the first council that that was actually agreed upon. All right.
What was that part? What was agreed upon?
That Jesus was the only begotten son. So John 3:16 had to have been written after 325 AD.
Oh, okay.
Had to have been.
Okay.
But we all know that probably the most forged spiritual book ever is the one that's been changed the most is the Bible. It gets changed, different different languages. And then, remember, once Rome embraced Christianity, the religion became politicized and weaponized. Before that, the cops would control the streets until the Christians were to go. After that, the power held with the church controlled the cops. So the religion became politicized and weaponized when Rome embraced it, and it embraced Rome.
When King James decided to write the Bible, he hired all these scholars.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different story
A
about
whole bunch of
the break from the English church because Henry VIII couldn't get a divorce. But when we're talking about the separation, the fracture in the infrastructure, a lot of people, maybe you've experienced this, some are leaving angry. That's what it talks about when you look at the various stages, which, oh, by the way, it does correlate to a reference. One of the statements in the Gospel of Thomas is quest, discovery, shock, disturbance from your discovery. When you disturb something, you've shaken it up. You disturb the ground, you've done that. We talked about this a little bit last time. Go with it, but you're going to be disturbed. So with some people, that makes them angry. Look at a lot of people today who suffer with women's rights and their devout Christian belief.
Say that again.
Think of people today, especially today, who support women's rights, but are also very stuck in their Christian ideologies. It fights. They're in inner turmoil. They're getting angry. But that's just an example. But what it does is the reason I use that example, because then the lines start to link. You start to do self-analysis on why you're angry. You start to see it's what you've been taught from a spiritual person's view, which pretty much guaranteed to be an old white guy. I mean, let's just face it. For at least people in this room, or maybe a padre. Was mainly the guy, right? And so there's that. So you got people who are angry. They're starting to wake up and see the hypocrisy. They're starting to see, well, if the four gospels can't get their shit right, then how am I supposed to believe the entire 27 books of the New Testament? Because you got two saying they were shepherds of the birth. You got two saying they were magi, and the two shall never cross because you would identify the difference between the two. Just in appearance. You could look and tell a shepherd from a magi.
No,
So what was
you
it?
need to go by a nativity scene. They were both there. Like you just put them both there.
I need to do a comb over. All right. Some are in sorrow. They get depressed. They get hurt. This is what you have given your entire life believing, and now you're finding there's cracks in the foundation. And some are just tired. They're tired of dealing with it. You grew up in it. Maybe you went to a Christian school, a Catholic school. You've been at, you really wanted to give it all. A good example of this would be, and I'm not giving anything away, but if you saw Disclosure Day, it's the girlfriend. Simply fatigued.
you start seeing.
She hasn't seen the movie. Don't say too much.
Oh no.
I didn't see it either.
All right, but that's a good example,
With
right?
me, it just started putting things together. When I was younger, I did ask questions, like what he said, and they would be like, "Shut up!" Basically, we'll tell me "You just a child, you just don't know." But eventually, I started noticing, everybody's treated equal. Everybody's with this and that, especially with women's right. My wife told me the other day, she was like, I was born in 1975. And then in 1974 was the first time, because they passed the law, the first time that a woman could go out there and get a bank account without signing. Yeah. And when I heard that, I was like,
So
It wasn't that long.
I'm like, what the?
I heard that, and
Not
I'm like,
bad.
I was alive at
It's-
I was
7.
supposed to say,
I was
my dad
like-
was
I was
alive.
like, what? So it kind of made me like,
Yep.
we're not. Like, this is a system that has, they say all this mumbo jumbo, but it's control white. So white
It's
men.
only been 100 years that they got the right to vote.
I'm like, what the?
I think too,
I
like
didn't know. That threw me off.
I would add to that, and I don't know, I don't want to speak for all women who have gone down the street, but for me also one of the things was the ability to take what I would consider internal anger at that whole dynamic of cool, why am I not the same? That internal anger and be able to release the internal anger. Now, I still get mad externally at plenty of things, but I don't feel like moving away from this makes me feel like I don't have a war within myself. Like, and that,
Yeah.
which is kind of what you were speaking to with the women's rights. And
Yeah.
as you know, I spent most of my life Southern Baptist, and I'm like, but it doesn't feel right because why am I less than? That
And
doesn't
it's
make
like in the
sense.
Bible, the Bible in there, it definitely positions the man higher and the woman is less.
Which ironic because Jesus clearly stated that women were as equal spiritually as men.
Yeah. And then in spirituality, even Paul says, right? There is no Jew nor Gentile. There's no man nor woman.
And then also in the Bible, it talks about slavery.
Well, there was slavery. Now, but here's the thing, but think about it. No, yeah. She's actually one of the defined feminines that the Gnostics push. But now here's one. You just said that. Think of slavery. Obedience within intimacy cannot and does not nourish the soul. The hunger remains. If you are delusional, which means you see the contradictions and yet you still believe the other, I believe that's the definition of delusion. Or let's really get the rankings high. You're enslaved to the institution because they're telling you what to do, how to do it, what is good, what is acceptable, what is not. So you may think you're free. You're really enslaved. But the hunger remains, and that's what drives people forward. Is you cannot right. You cannot feed the hunger with stuff that you recite, ritual. All these things are great for, the dog and pony, but it does not feed the hunger within you, your soul, because you know it's an illusion. It's like, that when you're standing on the beach and you see the waves, remember earlier we said when you first do it, that's a surface truth. We humans, a lot of times through our emotions, are like that person standing, and we are the surface of the ocean. Some days we have rough days, man. Some days it's really smooth. But either way, if you go into the depths of the water, it's calm. Now, yeah, there's undertow. Someone said that once. All right, Jacques Cousteau, I got it. But work with me. Calmness in the depths of the water that not is on the surface of the water, right? All right. So this all leads to ontology, because then it starts making you think, why am I here? What is real? And is there anything sacred left that has not been corrupted? And I would say, yes, you. Yeah, we've all been corrupted. We got it. But the beautiful thing about being human is you can change any given second. Because you're human. So yeah, there's corruption. Also are the recognition of the divine within. Now I know if people heard us say this, my God, will be on everyone's prayer list because we have a one-way ticket to hell. Right?
Not to ask first.
Huh?
Why do they not? Nobody asks. They just tell you that I'm praying for you.
But again, it's all right. But see, this is seekers seeking answers externally. Have you ever saw Twisted Yoga?
No.
Twisted Yoga is a great documentary. It's kind of disturbing. Twisted Yoga. It's about this guy's in prison now for some sex acts, but it is dealt with Tantra yoga and a bunch of different yoga and how yoga is part of the divine, because it is. But it when you boil it down to it, when we were watching, I told Shelley, it falls to that last bullet. It's seekers seeking outside of themselves.
Yeah.
All right. So it's seekers. And so that's important. Happiness, people, cannot be found externally. You get a new Xbox, great. You're happy for a couple weeks, then you're like bored. You want a new one. I mean, it's longer than a couple weeks, we'll work with it. So you see, when we're trying to find anything external, it doesn't last because it's an illusion. It falls into the two things of the realm, spirit or illusion. So you got to look inward. But Twisted Yoga is a great example of these people who are trying to take that next step of their spirituality, maybe with the right intention, but they were seeking externally to what this guru could teach them, what this class could teach them. What it taught them was a one-way ticket in bed with him and 6 hours a day working on a porn site. That's the essence of Twisted Yoga. And yet it's a spiritual experience. Trust me, if you watch it, you see it. And it's sad because these people really thought what they were going to do was going to enlighten them even more.
So there's a lot that though.
Well, there's a lot, but that one I watched, so I threw that one out there. All right. Because, when you look at this, it makes everything look like it's failing. We watch the news today, you think humanity's going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
When you look at it, what we were just talking about, this is all an example. You ever heard of a pretend sandwich?
Yeah.
Pretend sandwich.
Yeah.
2 pieces of bread, pretend you had some meat in between.
Oh, yeah.
You got a pretend sandwich. That's what they're feeding you. That's what today's church feeds.
Society does that.
It's fake. Yeah,
The
society.
pursuit of happiness. Like they go to school, learn, and all these things. Go get a job. Go do this and do this, and
then
retire at 67, and then you have 10 years and you die. It's that whole thing, and you kind of like don't figure that out. Like you just gonna. You don't figure it out. Like you have to enjoy life in the middle too, and do your thing. Right. Find your own way.
Or another thing you get are these apocalyptic ideas. And we can thank Jewish writers around 3 BC started the whole apocalyptic craze. Then it's all coming to an end. Now, we do know Jesus said heaven and earth shall pass away. Now, we know through science that, planets do go. I actually believe that Mars was once a third-dimensional planet. It's for another time. And a few meds less, maybe. So people out there may think I'm crazy, but I'm just saying. All right. So what this does, though, is because gnosis is emerging. So remember, gnosis is not knowledge you recite. It's not that you're intelligent, book smart. You have a freaking, what's that called? A memory. You just look at
Eidetic or
photogenic memory. Okay. People, photographic memory may make you intelligent and knowledgeable, but it is not the knowledge of gnosis. It's the exact opposite. You recite something all day, you're just like the Orthodox. Knowledge from the Gnostic point of view has to come from within you. It's your truth. And again, I always tell people, think of truth as an evolving door, because tomorrow you may learn something different that you weren't aware of today, and you're open enough that it may shift a truth a little, right? But that's gnosis. And see, that's why the Greek word Gnostic means knowledge, but the Greeks had 2 variations of knowledge. The reciting and then the just knowing. That resonance, as Pythagoras would say, it's what resonates within you. That's gnosis. And the only one that can give you your truth is you. That's why I've told Mimi, I've talked to Sam, there's times when I'm giving a class or I'm talking to you up there, I may say something that I don't believe. Because it doesn't matter if we're talking. I don't give a shit if you believe what I believe. I don't want you to believe what I believe. But I will throw it out there as an anchor for you. I told someone last week I didn't believe in mentors. But the story was I was trying to get the point across to this person. I believed in them. Because for years I've been dealing with this. And I'm just trying to help them. But I do believe in mentors. But I told them I didn't. Mentors. Mentor. And I mean, Sam was there, she was, but the whole purpose was trying to get that person to have more faith in themselves. I mean, mentors are great.
You trying
I was just trying to push, but so I'm saying is I will say something that I may not believe, but I've researched it enough that, hey.
You mean like a mentor?
All right. So anyways, the Gnostic dude is based in part of what wants us to remember. This is all about remembering. So yes, I always argue. And again, we have this conversation. Here's another example. I will always try to push you, and I always push that you are divine. I remember some guys came in, they're probably in their 20s, they're really in the Nords and things. He's a druid. And I asked him, have you ever asked your higher self? Or as Eckhart would say, your deeper I. Have you ever asked? They had never heard of that reference. Higher self. We had someone here the other day, getting a Ganesh, and I understand you turn things over to Ganesh and so forth. But I will always take that opportunity to let someone know you don't need Ganesh. You need is you. But as Cryon said, and Sam pointed out, we had a great discussion. The thing is with humanity is one little doubt, and you can't do it. But it's just that awareness. Let that, and it's funny, throw fertilizer on that. See how it's funny? Because Nag Hammadi, they were like, anyways, come on, work with me. So you see, you keep that inner knowing. It's not blasphemy. You're not saying I'm the big G. I mean, if you're a rap star, you might say that'd be a good name. Big G. Yeah. You're not saying you're the creator, but yet you are. It's like Lord Shiva. Shiva is Lord of creation and destruction. What the fuck do humans do? We create and we destroy. So you see, but I think I do understand because let's go back 2,000 years. I mean, if you had a little bit of a mental thing, they're probably going to think you're possessed, whatever. So it won't be good. But let's look at the consciousness. The Abrahamic religions came out of the Kali Yuga, which is the furthest from consciousness. A lot of people couldn't handle it like this. We talked about it last month. Isn't it funny? No one likes to be told what to do unless it's something spiritual. You don't want to be told what time to get up, right? What time to go to bed. You don't want to be told what you're going to eat. You're all grown-ups. But damned if come Sunday morning, you don't want to be told how to be a good person. This group. But a lot. And see, but I think, again, Dwarpar Yuga's age of self-interest. I think people are waking up and gnosis is getting its boom. Because you know what? Again, these were not meant for anyone to ever see. Luckily, a monk or someone had them buried. You know, and I'm sure before 1945, no one was worried about the little pieces they were finding. No one was going to put all this together. But here's the politics of all this. The Dead Sea Scrolls, I believe, were found in 1947. Dead Sea Scrolls were out for publication after being deciphered quicker. They did not want you to see this stuff. That's why it's ironic. I always tell people, watch the 1999 movie Stigmata. Because the whole underlying theme of that movie is the Gospel of Thomas. So, pretty cool. But I believe things are changing because people are starting to see they have the ability to find their truth. Because again, all of this tells us that the divine is not external. The divine is not far. The divine is within you. All right. It's operating alive within the silence that we've been taught to ignore. Now, I know a lot of people in this room, and I know our minds are rarely silent. So I said, I know the people I'm referring.
Big fast.
Right? Right? And that's okay. That's not the silence they're talking about. It's that moment. Remember the depths of the water, the peace. Because in that, you know where light is the brightest? In the darkest moments. Go out to the sky. If you go out to the sky downtown Chicago, you'll be lucky to even see any star. You go out to the dark sky, and where are you from?
Hart County?
Hart County. I don't know where that is. South Kentucky. South Central.
South Central.
Not a lot of light noise, right?
No.
You see a lot of the sky.
Heck yeah.
But it's one thing that Gnosticism, this whole idea, these writings can help you, is because humans will habitually go through dark nights of the soul. All right? Depends on your little path. If you got an aggressive path, you'll go through more. If you got a less aggressive path, you'll go through less. But it's not like a one-time adventure only, right? Because think of how many lifetimes you have. You're actually sculptures, if you think about it. You are this big chunk of rock. Visualize. And you, in your utter perfection, has to chip away all the bullshit that every incarnation you have carried. Right? And so you're chipping away at this block, because in that block is perfection, is you. Just like if you look at this, the Mona Lisa is in this. All you have to do is do all the lines and the shading. But the Mona Lisa, anything you can imagine, can be put on this paper. You just got to open your mind. And that's what Gnosticism teaches, open the mind. Because you are of divine heritage. Now, again, when you look at the history and all this, it may have been a good point that a lot of them didn't catch this, because who's to say where to be today? It's kind of like I often say, where would Christianity be without the Old Testament? I guarantee it'd be a different religion. Because the message is different in the two. All right. Questions? All right. Remember we talked about the inward path last time. You got to take this. It's revolutionary. It's empowering. It's the same as this. This little symbol here I got my records. Put yourself at the center of the universe. Everyone around you benefits. It's the same thing here. When you start this inward journey, for some it's fast, for others it's not. But here's the thing. The minute you worry about time, I learned this the hard way. The minute you worry about time, it's ego. I got a Vedic reading the other day, and apparently the only thing stopping me, which I knew, was my own ego. I get it. I'm working on it. Like it. Let's move on. Because if I sit and say, okay, how come I'm not moving this fast? How come I'm not getting this? Right? Well, then there's a comparison. There's a comparison. You're talking about a reference point. You have reference points. You can argue it is a time. And that would fall on the x-axis of the human being dimension. So I thought, okay, you know what we need to do? We need to stop being human and start being more human being. Not be a catchy phrase if I could figure out the second part, but it's there. So you guys can work on it. Feel free to run with it, make a t-shirt, coffee mug.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean, though? Because we're human beings. And it's the being that's the important. It's that being that ties us to the mind. It's that being that ties us to presence. It's always present. So we are humans. So yeah, we're going to have human thoughts. We're going to have human things. So you got to make sure you don't judge yourself from that. Not ego crazy.
So stop there and start.
Be more human being. So you see, humans still in the
That
name.
pause is critical.
But in human, because we can't stop being human, because we're in a human, we're incarnated right now as humans. So that's why the words where you say, all right, you got to be perfect 51% of the time. Because if you're a spiritual entity having a human experience, you're going to experience human things, and that's the 49%. But you know, the jealousy, the anger, all the emotions, the anger, all these things are part of being human.
It's all about embodiment.
It is, because presence is always in you. It's just we go and seek it externally. If I meditate twice a day, I will bring presence into my life. If I do this, I will have, but yet you don't have to do any of that. You have to just be aware that it's already there.
Just think.
Right. You think. You do not have to seek anything externally. You do not have to seek. You have to go within, right? And you're right. Conscious blanking. We unconsciously blink and breathe, but conscious blinking, they've shown, impacts the parasympathetic nervous system and the prefrontal lobe of the brain. So it's very calming. It brings you into presence. So you see, it's more, and that's the Gnostic view. All the work's inside. That's why they didn't have a hierarchy. They didn't have an institution. They had many variations, but what they did is they went around and did the teachings. Everyone was equal.
You don't need a
Right.
tool.
You didn't have a
to
bishop,
do it.
an archbishop, a pope. You had none of that. That creates an institution. And then that creates an institution, then has a hierarchy. And then when there's someone up here, they're going to tell someone down here what they need to do. And then it's going to go on. And then it's so on and so
They
on.
basically help each other. There was
Exactly.
nobody that, okay, let me just go to Mark. And
there wasn't like fighting. If you heard something and we disagreed on what I believe this, you believe that, then guess what? It was okay. Because it's all within. Whereas if you go over there, they're going to tell you what to believe.
Right,
They're going to tell you what your truth is, right? And if you don't believe, then yeah, you're wrong. And so that's the total opposite of Gnosticism, is that you get it from within you. All right? It's a refusal to accept a world in which truth is only external, transactional, or performative. I mean, they were refusing this, not just, we focus, yes, on the Christian Gnostics, because we pointed out in the first class, there were others.
It just explains why I was aware of my family, because I never did.
Now think about it as this. Think of this as the beginning of a return. A return to truth that was always ours. See, Gnosticism does not offer escape, and it's not easy consolation, but it does offer depth. The reason it's not easy or offer an escape goes to this, because when you start reading them, any of the Nag Hammadi, next time we'll get into the Gospel of Thomas thing, you're going to start. Now, the Gospel of Thomas is a little easier to not be so much disturbed, because you already heard this, and a lot of what that's talking about is it's all within you. But the reason there is a disturbance, because I guarantee this isn't our first incarnation in a Protestant ideology light. I just don't feel like it is. I think you have to go through a few of them before you start to see the cracks in the foundation. And for some, well, maybe not. Maybe there are some people that say, hey, screw this. This sounds stupid. I'm moving on. Yeah. It's only my third time on the planet. I better figure it out. I don't think that's true. But you never say impossible, right? It's kind of like, and I did earlier, who said the sun rises tomorrow. Well, the sun never rises. The probabilities are high, but it's not a guarantee, right? I guarantee you put this work in, there is a level of peace that comes upon. Because as I shared before, when I actually admitted to myself that I was not qualified to teach overthinking because I overthought, it made me overthink even more. I started reading this in the Gospel of Thomas, and there was this utter peace that just wiped all that angst away. And also shows self-compassion. One read through, it may or may not hit, meaning boom. Eckhart talks about his transformation was rather quickly. Once he made the comment, I can no longer live with myself, and he realized that I and myself were two different things, blah, blah, blah. The next day, boom, different man. But he also says he's not the average. So it's just something you want to keep going back to. And when you go back, you're actually going within. It's just the way it's so elegantly put. When you start to see it, because remember, you don't read the Nag Hammadi. You don't read any Gnostic writing as you would read any story. Because they wrote in symbolism. They wrote in riddles and mysticism. You want to read it with an open heart and an open mind. Because then the words, we talked about the word disturbance, we brought out last time, Stan was talking about certain things in disturbance. It brings a lot of things. But at least it gives you an idea. It's kind of like we will then be equal, identical. Make sense? Kind of like the first thing, those who understand these will never taste death. And you're like, well, wait a minute. We're all human. So we're talking about, the body, but that's not the death they're talking about because you are literally immortal. So it offers depth, opportunity to remember. All right. It offers a way of seeing that does not erase pain, but it allows it to become sacred. In other words, if you embrace it, you harmonize and it's no longer agitation. Around 3:00 this morning, I had to get up and go to the bathroom. I had to get up because Raven turned the light on because I have a push button and she was freaking out with the thunder, right? So she was trying to crawl under the bed. And as she did, the light flashed and it made me think I was in a dream. And then the dream, it was like, one of those old 1930, flashes. So I got up, I went to the bathroom, like, oh, well, I just got flashed in 1930. Then I came back and I got really anxious. And I thought, okay, I was picking up her energy because she was under my side of the bed.
Oh.
And once I embraced, I was doing that. So when you are fighting something and it seems to keep going on, ask yourself, am I resisting it or am I embracing it? What what you resist persists. And so that's what this offers. It's a guide. It helps you embrace what we would call pain. And once you do, it redefines itself. You ever get a massage and you're kind of sore, but you like it because it's making you feel better in the long run? It's kind of like if you approach this whole approach like that. Yes, there's going to be some pain. There's some awakening, but you're going to get through it. And you know what? It's not a mistake that you're diving into it. Or you're drawn to it. There's a reason you're resonating. Go with it. That is your soul's hunger seeing a freaking buffet. Now, granted, if you're starving, you're on the buffet, don't do that with the Gnostic writings because it'll just be more confusing and it'll just be like, all you do, then you get a whole upset stomach, you're on the throne, out with seltzer, a whole nine yards. Right? Be at peace.
Personal experience.
Booyah! Or as someone say, huzzah. What do you say?
Huzzah.
There we go. All right, this is all a call to remember. Remember, perfect instead of best. No one can teach you anything. They can only open up the doors for you to remember. That's why when that's why it's hard, sometimes when you get people for years. Here's the thing. And if they hear it, that's fine. You know why no one likes an Eeyore? The Eeyore does not take freaking responsibility. That's it. And you can only tell your story to people so many times because every time you keep telling it and telling it and telling it, all you're doing is validating your own ego. People don't want to see you suffer. They want to see you grow. They want to see you sprout. They want to see you be you. Yeah, I'm being me. My personality is an asshole. Not that you. That's not you we're talking about. That's the female sheep you. Anyways, you know what I'm saying? Now? They want you. We want you. You want you to shine. Shine, because that's where these things take you, is they give you a whole different direction that you would have never thought of.
It's wild because I'm sitting here and just at one line. I'm like,
Fine.
so, it call to remember. Because I feel like my whole life I've asked myself over and over again, count at like 10, like age 10. What am I here for? Why am I here? And now I'm sitting here going, was I just trying to tell myself to sit down and remember?
I mean, there are
Like, prompting
ideas.
myself, like that question of what am I here for that seems to plague so many people. What if that's your energy trying to prompt you to go inside yourself about the answers? And you're just sitting out.
Do you want an answer? 'Cause we can't give you one.
Okay. No. You
No,
said
no.
you wanted us to talk more, Mark.
All right. Well, and that is those of you who ask, and remember, that's one of the questions this does, because that's also a branch of metaphysics, ontology. Why am I here? I could give you why I think you're here, but that makes it. I've done enough reading where people have asked that question. And I've shared this where it was like to just be. Then I learned about the human being. And so they all flow. And so I got an understanding. But I don't know why would I share that? Because that's my understanding of why I'm here. At least in this class. Now you ask me another class, I'll probably give it to you. But since this is about gnosis, we got to keep it real to the topic.
Right.
Only you can answer that for you. But that's a beautiful question, because that is one of the questions. As the foundation's crumbling, people are asking, why am I here? I would say you guys are here in this chaotic mess because you chose to be. Right. And you're going to rise from it just like a phoenix in the ashes.
I have asked that question to myself sometime, but I came to the realization that I'm like, okay, why am I here? So I'm here, one, to experience as much as possible. Like I'm drawn to a lot of like things and people, and sometimes I could get in trouble, but I feel like I'm here to learn and to also create and to see and explore, and whatever I'm getting, I'll take it wherever I'm going. But that's what I feel like. I feel like I just want to like create things and experience. So that's what it is.
All right. Because, to risk intimacy with what is real. That is what you're doing when you ask questions like that. But see, here's the thing. In this risk, regardless of pace, however quiet, however trembling, the soul begins to stir. I wanted to prove a point, so I wrote it in my notes, that it's a good thing that it begins to stir and that there is no risk. You create a risk if you think you need to be like Eckhart and, become totally super enlightened overnight. Because then you realize 3 days later you're not. You're like, shit, I failed. That's why I always say, write your goals in pencil. Things happen. Right? The Gnostics. Again, the Gnostics term comes to Greek. This is where we're going to start, and then we're going to end with the divine feminine. I love this topic. I love the Nag Hammadi. Now that I've learned to read it better. Because I shared this last time. Literally, I did. I've got all kinds of variations of Gnostic writing. I've got different variations of the Nag Hammadi. I got the Lost Gospel of Q. I mean, my God. Have you guys even heard of it? All right, I got a lot. For over a decade, I was reading this shit wrong. That's why I had so many question marks.
Somewhere, I want to say it was in my.
It could be,
wrote
because
that
there is
gospel
similarities.
also.
There is similarities, just like in that. But yeah, no, that's true. And that's why you'll see some of the Gospel of Thomas in the New Testament. I mean, they're sprinkled. Truth is sprinkled, right?
Just enough.
Yeah, just enough to keep it. Oh, wait. But even when they say, as Jesus, as I say to you, no, the best one would be is, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things shall be added unto you. And the later, it's very clear, Jesus referenced the kingdom of God is within you. Now, you won't get it like that, because again, you're taught golden gates, streets of pearl, or the pearly gates, streets of gold. See, it's been a while. I remember watching apocalyptic end of time movies as a kid. Hey, shit, man, that's fucking with the kid's psyche.
Yeah.
I'm 13 at church watching Armageddon happen on the screen. Now, that's going to bring me closer? No, that's fear porn.
I remember at 5
Yeah.
thinking, well, being scared of that, thinking, yeah,
So yeah, that's the anyway. We do all that, and you did. All right. So it means knowledge. We went through that. Not the kind of knowledge we went through that. Remember again, the cool thing is they were not a unified sect. They had no central authority, no common creed, no single founder. Now, one could argue that that hurt them when it came to the councils. I don't think so. I don't think they had a prayer. All right. The Nazis today is a collection of teachers, schools, and writing. All shared certain resonance. Let's go here. So, but again, especially in awareness at their core, there was a certain connection between all of these things. Even if you're reading some of the Seth writings, like I've got the Gnostic Bible, and the Gnostic Bible doesn't only have Christian, it's got some of the Judaism, it's got Melchizedek, it's got some of the Nords. So again, that's what I love about it is they were not strict to one focus. It was almost like they reached out and pulled the truth, their truth, from all these religions or all these ideas, all these things, because let's think of it, collective consciousness. I still always say, and maybe this is so that no one can hit me with plagiarism, down the road, like nobody would actually sue me for that because who am I? But in 2026, I really don't believe there's anything as an original thought. I've been here so many times. Now, granted, maybe your first thought to you or you worded it different. So you see, that's the beauty of this returning is, guess what, people? Eventually, it kicks in. In this case, what kicks in first is doubt. Not doubt in you, it's in the doubt of the truths you've been told to believe. Because you start to realize, wait a minute, I am smart enough to know now, and I don't care which knowledgeable, you can take the reciting smart enough to know now that this doesn't make sense.
We start out as doubting Thomases.
There you go. You got to be. In some things, that's like we always say. And here's the thing. If you were the leader today, tell me I was full of crap, and you wholeheartedly believe in the Orthodox system, then guess what? I am. Because you've made your decision. It is your truth. And if that is your truth, then I can't argue that. No matter how hard I may point things out, I can't argue. And we had someone who, Sam and I talked about this, we had someone who told me I was wrong, flat out wrong on something. And there's some history though. Now, I don't agree in this aspect that I was wrong. Because it was a simple thing. It wasn't really, but I was so happy for them because in the time I have dealt with that person or witness, not even just dealing, that was the first time I saw them make a decision on their own. Care less if she agreed or disagreed. I was happy that she made a freaking, hey, and we talked about that. I was so happy.
Instead of leaving everything.
With that or just, or something. Yeah. But I was just so happy. At first caught me off guard. I was like, no, that's your ego. Shut up. Then I was like, oh yeah, that's beautiful. I was like, no, first I'm like, no, hell no, I'm not wrong. Blow up. And then, probably pull my back out when I heard that. Yeah. It's just, what are you doing? I'm just stretching. Anyways, so, and it's nothing against the church. It's not. All right. What we have today are just, it's literally as that old saying goes, the blind leading the blind. And the point is that we are gaining sight. And in that, you want to make this all your truth. Like Shelley always says to me, it's not all about you. Well, from my point of view, yes, it is. And from your point of view, it should be all about you. It really should. But just like there's a fine line between the spiritual world and mental health, there's a fine line in the spiritual awareness. It's all about you, and the arrogance is all about you. Again, that's why I do the circle with the S, because what it means is you're giving yourself that compassion. You're giving yourself that love. If you judge the world, I guarantee you judge yourself worse. So if you start judging things, do a self-check. That's what I do because I can get very judgmental. And then I realize, oh shit, at the core, I'm just judging me. Because literally it is. It's a mirror, right? But let's take away the transcendent view and just look at a reality that's in front of us. If I'm very judgmental, then the odds are for the last few days, something's triggered. I may have caught the wrong headline. And dear Lord, then I create it. If you don't know me, Joey learned this the hard way. I'll read headlines and I don't really always read the story. So I sent him this cool quantum physics story. And then it was good, but I was like, I was thinking I knew he read it, so he was going to tell me about it. When he told me about it, that is not what I thought the headline was. I didn't know the story, so I am good about
This
that.
one was.
Well, I think it's important to remember everybody says this. You can't change another person. That is regardless of whether or not you're following this path or not. So if you believe that, which I do, you can't change it. If we believe that, then the only thing we can change, whether you're down this path or not, is ourselves. That's the only thing we can do. And so if that's all you can do, then it makes sense that you have to be the center. Now I think making yourself the center and being self-centered is two different things.
Right. That's the arrogance and not. Yeah, I got that.
Yeah.
For sure, right? You're right. The more that you offer yourself, for me, the more I soften, and I notice the more compassion I'm able to offer others because I've given that to my.
Exactly. That's why you want to do. That's why everything is within. The world is a mirror. Now this inner truth is awesome. You got to find yours. So when you're reading these things, again, you don't read it as a story or an academic way. You got to read it with an open mind. Trust me. Take a few runs at it. Reading what? I've been reading these over a decade. It's only been about 2 months. I figured out how to read them. Although,
But it took that long.
yeah, other than, well, it took prepping for this to say, no wonder. But one of the things we used to do, and what I did the first time when I was reading it before and I was like, okay, it's not making sense. I wanted try it.
Okay.
Go on your, if you know how to read the records, go on your records and read some sacred text. And it's, wow, it's awesome.
And if you don't know how to read the records, the book on how to read the records is actually really, really, really good. And anybody can.
And if you buy the book, I'm always willing to give you, I was actually certified to teach it.
Now, which book are you talking about?
How to read
I
the
have one at
Akashic
home.
records.
Oh, I have one at home, but it's written by someone else. So,
Who wrote it?
I
Linda Howe? She wrote several.
think so. Off the
Then she wrote,
I,
that
I've
was,
not read it yet.
she was my mentor. See, there's the word. Anyways. All right. Again, the whole point, if you get it, the whole point here is, I couldn't figure it out. I was having a stroke.
Yeah, my week.
Humorly, I'm glad everything's okay, but yes, that would have been like, all right. Christ was not just a historical figure, is not just a historical figure. Christ is not a redeemer. Christ is a revealer. Right? Christ was not the name. Christ is a level of consciousness. Christ consciousness, Krishna consciousness, and the collective consciousness. Or what's else collective consciousness is collective psychosis. So if you're not part of the collective consciousness, and you're I guarantee you're part of the collective psychosis. I got humanity. And I'm only saying that because we're in America. Because I mean, it's nothing against, I'm sure everyone's got their collective psychosis group. Remember, we started off last class where I showed you that example of reality. Whereas even if I told you the sky is pink at noon, all right, you could argue, well, it's sunset. Fuchsia. No, that would even be fuchsia. Sky's, give me a color that
Polka dots.
at noon. All right. You know, it's a damn lie, but I'm convinced.
It's like the sun.
She runs with it. Yeah.
People see the sun as yellow, but the sun is not really yellow.
Yeah. Would you ever see a sunrise? Have you ever been able to look in the past? Yeah, you did. Every time you watch sunrise. It's 8 minutes and 20 seconds difference, is it not?
Huh.
Ooh.
It's not if you're enough miles away.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
So you see,
Huh.
you do look in the past.
I love that you just dropped the distance for the sun so
Well, he is a
casually.
meteorologist.
Like,
That's why why do you think I looked at him when I made that comment? I want to make sure I was right. 8 minutes, 20 seconds, right? It's like the 15-second delay. It's not actually 15 seconds, but you ever watch the cop cams?
Mhm.
That's how you would actually see if your brain didn't fix it. So you do not even see in real time. There's a delay to neuroscience. Because if not, you'd be always seeing like that. How, like the cop cam videos, that's how we walk. But you can walk, you can run, you don't see like that unless you're watching them video where they've got a cop cam on or a cam. It's fascinating. All right. Christ is a symbol of awakening. Or in Krishna, all these things. Okay. It's the light within calling us back to source, pleroma, fullness. Now, again, if you study this, I would just say, you don't have to get all into their mythology and their, whatever, the pleroma and all that. It's fascinating and maybe it will resonate. The key for these classes, these and the ones coming, is to get into the writings. Because when you get into the writings get into you. And where do you have to then find what the writings mean? Inside of you. So I know there's other, and plus we've come a long ways in the 2,000 years of these writings they were going, but the foundation has not changed. This is the foundation. As you can say, well, I believe in between lives, like in between lives also. So they don't want you to embrace their cosmology, right? That's just part of the cosmology of their creation story, right? That's not what they're doing. That's their cosmology. Yes. No, the essence is the understanding that the first thing is to recognize the divine is within you. Then it's the unveiling of the illusion, the journey of the soul, experiencing gnosis, which is your truth, and the role of the revealer. Because as you start to gain your truth and you're sharing with people, guess what you become? A revealer. Some blasphemous. It's not. That is just another way of control. If you read the histories of Jesus, there's a lot of things that happen today that the Jesus that we've learned would not be involved in. Jesus that I've learned about and grown and studied with would be with everyone that majority of people are persecuted. When you made it, we talked about this last time. This hit me the other day. When you've made it, when there's not a month named after something for you to celebrate. Understand that?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's separation. Pride Month is just their way of separating you from anyone else. Black History Month, Women's History Month. You should be able to do Pride 365 days a year. If you are significant in history, it shouldn't matter your race or your gender. You should be a part of, quote, history. You've made it when we quit separating, which I love because you go back to the Bhagavad Gita. And remember, one of the things that when you die, a guaranteed return trip is to still see separation.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's a passage in the Gospel of Thomas where you could be seeing that Jesus is talking about, is that statement supporting they and thems? No. Because they and them still have a duality. When he talks about the man should become the woman should become man, it's a reference to the fact that, hey, you have masculine, feminine energy. When you see all things as one, that's what he's referencing. When you no longer see the woman, you no longer see the man. It's one. It's a human being. Because what they have learned to do is to quiet you and yet further separate you. We're going to give you a month. This is your month to celebrate.
Woo!
for the next 11 months, stay, shut the hell up.
You don't matter.
Yeah, basically. And that's so you've made it. But you do matter. And I'm not saying that the ones who created that had that intention. I'm not saying that 'cause I can't speak.
That's why I really don't care about no like holidays. I mean, I participate in them because this is society, but in reality, it's like I don't need a Father's Day.
Dang it.
Treat me good
Thank you.
and kind every
Yeah.
single day. Mother's Day every single day, and twice every single day. For everybody treat me.
We hate Valentine's. Why do you need one day? All right, here's the deal. I got to move forward because I want to represent truth. Instead of more commandments, institutional authority, you find riddles, paradoxes, visions, all kinds of things. You're going to be thinking, what were they smoking or eating when they wrote these? That's how some of these are freaking fascinating. They really are. All right. Jesus often speaks in veiled language. We know that. It's because it's for you to remember. People are not, let's be honest, the Kali Yuga, we know that. So I think even further validates the Yugas to me because people 2,000 years ago were not consciously ready to embrace the full spectrum of the message. Right? Carl Jung, who actually bought the first one of the codices. They bought the first codice, and I believe the Gospel of Truth was in that. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens? Much part of the Gnostic movement in modern day. So a paradox, this was actually notes from my notes that I actually, as I was typing all my notes, because all my notes were on a yellow pad that I just said, screw it, and just put them on here. These were like, how I scribbled. So, that really wasn't meant for you guys to see, but when I did it, I said, screw it.
Mhm.
Because when you look at branches of metaphysics, ontology is one of them. Paradox is a statement that seems self-contradictory, like less is more. So these are those things you find in these writings. So that's why you don't want to read them direct and literal. You want to read them with an open heart and an open mind because that opens up so much more. Does that make sense? Bless you. All right. Think of the landscape, newly developed except church. This is now this is what we got. All right. Before we get to the women's, remember, this is so cool. All right. All right. So remember, we talked about this last time. All right. So we know Jesus was born in 64 BC. Let's move on. All right. So in this period, there are other sects, but there are two predominant. All right. You had the Gnostics and you had the Orthodox. 312, Constantine defeats Maxentius and then creates the Treatise of Milan, which basically gave approval to Christians to not be persecuted. Oh, that's our moment wrong. But so Christianity starts to gain some momentum in Rome, and there's all kinds of civil war still going on now. In a Sigma Chi moment, 320, Constantine sees a thing in the sky, and in the sign it says "Invoke Signo Incus," which is in this sign you shall conquer. He saw a cross, so he embraces the symbol of Christianity, defeats Licinius. So he is finally, decades of civil war in Rome, he has finally quieted it. Now, if he's going to embrace Christianity, he wants one religion, one country, one ruler. We need obedience. So, even though the Gospel of Thomas would fit perfectly in an authentic Christian message, because it was teaching of Christ, it can't fit because the obedience is to the person, not the institution. So you can see how, and it didn't really help that for 200 years previous to this, you had, quote, church fathers slamming the Gnostic move, right? You can't have that. You can't have people thinking they're divine and they don't need, because what's the weirdest thing? I've never understood. Why would you go to confession and tell some dude the dreams you've had, that's some sick, perverted shit. All right. So, think of it this way. Here's what Christianity became. Divorced household. I mentioned this before. Think of it this way. You may have had friends growing up in a divorced household where for some reason dad got custody of the kids. All right. You will never speak of your mother. I'm going to love you, but it's going to be tough love. I'm going to give you enough slack to do what, give you some freedom, but I will punish you if you go wrong. Divorced household. Because they totally eliminated the divine feminine. Weaponize and politicize the message, and you demonized the female. And it's not just that. I mean, you look at the stories. Pandora's box, Lilith. But the Gnostics did not. Pisces Sophia, Sophia's fall and return is like the underlying foundation of Gnosticism. Sophia, Eve, is the mother of all saints. Mary Magdalene, which now makes you wonder if, see, now I've got to look at the symbology behind the word. Because of the thunder, I am the whore and I am the Holy One. We all grew up, and I'm sure it's changed in the last few decades, but I'm older, where you learn that Mary was a prostitute. We will now know that's not true. That's why I want to figure out the symbolism of that word, which may show insight to why Orthodox used it, but they used it out of context. They took it literal. Because when I read that in thunder, I thought, shit, is there something, because intoxication is another way for them to say delusional. It's not that everyone was drunk off their ass. It's everyone was delusional, right? If we get drunk, we get delusion. And we're already in a world of illusion. If we follow the world, then we are delusional. So no, I just got to look that up. I just want to know what is the word for, because then it actually bring a new context to Mary in a different way. And then they just took it literal.
That's got some knowledge on us.
You got it? What is it?
I throw it in chat GPT.
Oh yeah, there we go. Let's ask AI.
In the Gnostic era.
Let's not ask anyone's truth. Let's ask a machine.
So, common symbolic interpretations: selling one's integrity, exploitation and commodification, moral corruption, social stigma and control, temptation or desire,
Moral corruption.
marginalization.
Why you like her more than us? There's a comment between a disciple and Jesus. Or why do I not like you the same? You just know. One of the things you said made sense.
Moral corruption.
So you want to demonize it because there's even writing in Thomas where they would kiss on the lips. So we know Mary was special to him. Mary was not an idiot. Women helped fund the movement. But, because again, Jesus was the only one at that time. And oh, by the way, here's what's funny is we didn't have to grab the Old Testament because the Old Testament solely foretold of Jesus, because one of the things that the book about the Bible myths did point out that in that period, even in the East, they were looking for an avatar, a chosen one, Messiah. All right. So remember, we embrace the Old Testament because they foretold. You didn't have to, because even the East was talking about it, because Christianity even foretold of another avatar. All right.
So they were looking for an avatar,
There was
the
time.
Messiah. So when Jesus came to basically enlighten us, they made him
Right.
the avatar. He wasn't, because he didn't come for that.
He's a revealer.
They made him that way. So
Right. He, what you see a lot today is what he would say is a Pharisee. Right. Don't be a Pharisee. Praying, the people who think they're doing great, holding their God signs on the corner, pointing their attention to them, that is a Pharisee. I am meditating in front of everybody. That's a Pharisee act. Even though Pharisees won't do that. But
like that,
they're drawing attention
idol
to me.
is-
Yeah, look at me. I'm spiritual. I'm doing this. And then everybody donate. I don't know about that, but but don't be a Pharisee.
yeah.
But yeah, and then he ran through the church, right? And I always argued that if the divine created this, but then they could also argue what the demiurge did, so it's only half the Bible. But the argument was then what makes one piece of land more sacred than another? It's all created by the same source. Now, again, the Nazis would argue because that source was a demiurge. So that kind of threw that idea out the window. But the whole point is that it's not paved with belief, ritual, or obedience, but with gnosis. The gnosis is you. All right. It's not a knowing, it's intimate going on. It's like conscious, great. This is all good stuff. I had more notes than I thought. Oh, I wanted to say that. All right. At the risk of saying with such clarity to accept, embrace the responsibility that comes with such insight. It's cosmic, man. And I wrote that off gummies. But you can't believe what it's told. What is the fifth agreement? Fifth one.
The fifth one is from
Be skeptical.
Yeah. That fifth agreement is exactly what this is. There's no closure. It's not a conclusion. It's opening up the doors. Think of this. We talked about last time. It's like a V. When, down, it's like almost like the hourglass, right? So you got an hourglass. I'm not an artist. So those who are, I'm in the stands going. All right. So think of this part as your Orthodox days or Orthodox incarnation, right? You get the awareness. So you're actually going against the grain because you are. I mean, we're primarily a Christian country. So there may be some less Orthodox, some more, but it's still Orthodox. But so you're right here, man. You got the whole freaking world to go to now. It's an open bass, kind of like, we talked about biogeometry, the energy key, right? It goes this way, that way. Going to the right is going from spiritual to physical. Going to the left, it's going from physical to spiritual. That's why if you look at like the Nile, the River Nile, to the left is where all the tombs are. Everyone lives to the right. But you can also do this. And it creates carrier-waves. Infinite sign, right? So look at the symbolism. Open your mind. Look at everything and take nothing for what just the word means. Information to illumination. All right. As proven, all right, true. This is proven to be useful throughout our incarnation. However, it's useless when addressing the sacred. Book smart. The key word there is however. I was looking at it, I read that, and I was like, what am I trying to say? You got to remember. Because remember, one of the questions the fractures in the institution ask is anything sacred anymore? And again, the argument is yes. You. Because this is an illusion. This does not matter. I mean, I get it. We're an illusion where you got to have money to pay bills. We're an illusion where there is physical pain. We're in an illusion where there is birth and death and transition. That's why the very first line in Thomas is those who hear and understand these words will never taste death. Because yes, these things matter to you and me in this incarnation, but the bottom line is it's an illusion. And they were not the first to say that. Indians out of India have always seen that. All right. See, you're already connected to the divine. Now you just got to clear the fog. Because you are. All right, we've already beat the Gnostic and Orthodox connection. All right, remembrance over redemption. Something remembered from within. Know thyself, and thyself shall be known. Salvation comes from gnosis itself. No one can give you salvation but you. And then when you get that salvation, no one expects you to print it on a tank top and run through Walmart yelling, I am the salvation.
You say,
I'm what?
I'm saved.
I'm saved. Because you know what you're being saved from? Ignorance. Because that's what they say. We are born not from into sin unless you're going to the original meaning sin, which is the mismark, because then that is ignorance. So you're being saved from ignorance. Going to do it.
Mhm.
Not just knowledge, but inner realization of one's eternal essence. All right. Divine feminine. We were talking how the church hid a lot of sacred feminine. Then, of course, you get Dan Brown coming out, or maybe Leonardo, and it was like Last Supper.
Mhm.
The B between Jesus and one of the right. It also represents feminine or something.
It's the
The womb. Well, church doors, cathedrals. This is the womb. Oh, so I already talked about bridegroom, right? Bride chamber.
Brain chamber, yeah.
See, started learning these things. It opens up a whole bunch of shit, and you're like, oh, that's the one I spent years on trying to figure out what the hell are they talking. Oh, just hanging around. I'm looking at some of the eyes.
Good morning.
I'm looking at some of the eyes. It was like, it's more life in a morgue than something going on there. Come on, wake up, people. I know it's humid. It sucks. We're almost done.
We're trying to be quiet.
Good. I'll let you.
Why? You're like, I gotta get done. I gotta get done.
Well, once I define feminine, I know where I'm at.
Oh,
I just beat through like 7 slides, but it was slides again. It was all designed to be repetitive.
Right.
Because you got to see why things are the way they were. And there was politics behind it. There's a lot of not good energy at these councils. There's a lot of violence. And so you got to commend those who, like, they call them Arians, because Arius was a Gnostic. At the first council, really stuck to what they believed. All right. So we know what the Orthodox did to feminines. But now, as we talked about, Sophia is often placed at the center of cosmology. Because without Sophia doing her thing, this realm would not exist. All right. But here's the thing. An Orthodox would say, yeah, see, the woman screwed up. And maybe that's where they got the flare on the Sophia story. But what they don't follow with is how Sophia then rose and redeemed herself through her faith, not blind faith. All right. Blind faith is what I was going to talk about. We know the sun's going to rise tomorrow because the probability and possibilities are high. But would everyone agree the sun is going to rise tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Sun doesn't rise. The earth rotates.
Yeah. Something.
Something could happen. But you see, it's a high probability. So that's a form of blind faith because hey, what could happen? Asteroid hits Earth. I mean, granted, we have science now to show us, but you get the point. It's a faith in your inner knowing. Because here's a sad story. If I can tell you your truth better than you, that's messed up. No one should know your truth more than you, because it's your truth. And never give up your truth. Keep an open mind, but don't give up.
That's the only
It's your truth.
real.
It's you. Yes, it's real to you. That's faith. And that's how Sophia rose. All right. So she's a living force and plays an essential role in creation. She's the origin of the soul's dislocation and the archetype of its return. Again, the same guys who say you can't do this to your body because you're a female and I'm a guy and I know better would take that and then say, well, she's the reason it is. But you know what? If it didn't happen, they wouldn't exist. Everything happens for a reason. And the beauty in this cosmology is she redeemed herself and then. It wasn't like, oh, I screwed up. She, the story goes, she admitted that. But it wasn't like, and then withered away. No, she fought her way back. You don't get that. So through Sophia, Gnostic tradition affirms that falling and seeking, breaking and healing are both intrinsic to the spiritual path. It has to be. If you were born, yes, you're never as far as the day you're born because you're still connected. But say when you're 5, you start talking and you're like already knowing all this, well, you're going to ascend. You're not going to be sticking around. All right. That's the beauty in this. You have to go through what we call trials and tribulations. You have to be challenged. But how often do we come across a roadblock, which we created, and try to figure out a way to walk around it? And then we come across a similar roadblock a couple weeks later, try to walk around it. And then again, and again, and again. It's like that insanity thing where here's the thing. You can't go around the roadblock, go through it. No, that's actually Evie clearing her room. You guys thought it was Shelley saying time's up? Right? So Sophia is the symbol of the soul's wisdom, lost and found. Because if you can't remember it, it's lost to you, right? But the beauty with this whole process is it's a process to remember. And then when you remember, it's found. But it takes guts. All right. She is also the divine impulse with each person remember to return and to awaken. Mary Magdalene appears in the Bible. We know all this. We talked about that. Thank you. I think you might be onto something with that one. She also appears in other writings in the Nag Hammadi. So does Eve. Mary, there's a whole point that she was actually the first pope. Look that one up.
Wasn't she?
Not officially, but she was the one who got the movement going in France. And I mean, so then you think, oh, well, Jesus said, "Thee will be the father of the church." I think that could have been added by man later, because we do know that things have been written, just like the story of where he's in the street. Ye who is not sin cast the first stone at this lady is not in any original writing. So it was believed that around 300 and something that was added to just further the myth. All right, sorrow, fear, yes. All right, she speaks the strength of her challenge.
Wasn't there?
Wisdom.
I'm sorry. Wasn't there a in the
Yeah, no, and the Nag Hammadi. Now, Dead Sea Scrolls is more Old Testament. There's all for reference in Nag Hammadi of Old Testament. That's why they know these writings are older than 300. But yeah, it's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. It's in the Nag Hammadi. Actually, it was found in 1896 off of Cairo. But it's considered part because it's a Gnostic writing. So it wasn't actually part of the Nag Hammadi. It was found 50 years earlier.
So before peace.
No, 1896 piece. 1896. They found it off Cairo.
Also writing.
Yeah, the writing dates back to these days because Irenaeus knew of all these writings. So we knew they were in the 1st century. The argument there, the reason that's important is because the leather-bound codices found in 1945 date back to around 340. They can do that from the leather. They were also written in Coptic, but the original Gospel of Thomas we know was written in Greek, and it predates the ones found in Nag Hammadi, and that's why Irenaeus and these other church fathers knew and were writing against them, because remember, it was written in 2 Timothy. It's the only place in the actual Bible they talk around knowledge. All right. So together, these two females form a spiritual axis. This is Mary Magdalene and Sophia. But if you read them, there's more. Like I said, thunder is from a female's point of view. There's a poem there from a female's point of view.
The poem's called Thunder.
It's called thunder. Or something thunder. It's in the Nag Hammadi.
Gotcha.
And there's also two versions of truth. There's a treatise of truth, which I believe is the one that's written from the serpent's point of view in Eden. And then there's the gospel of truth, which is different point of view. All right. Both pointing toward a feminine principle that's long been suppressed, especially in religious history. All right. There are still denominations today where none of you who don't traditionally stand peeing up can stand at the pulpit and preach.
Peace in you.
I said traditionally. I know you can. I said traditionally.
You said stand peeing up.
That'd be us, right? You can tell it's the end of the class, but you know what I mean. Feet. And I said traditionally. I know there would be one you go, I can do it standing up. And I was
No, your wording was
like, wrong.
backwards.
I know. But now I was trying to share what was going on in my head. Because all of you would have stood up and said, I can do it if I want. That's why I meant tradition. But you know what? See, even though it's funny, y'all got the point.
Yeah.
Female. And so that's what I'm saying. But in the Gnostic writer, that is not the case. You are just, and as we know in this place, and as people you know, you are just equally as spiritual as any male. But again, we also believe in incarnation. And I know I've been a female. That's why I said I've given birth, just not in this incarnation. Although sometimes on the toilet, I feel like I'd give birth.
I'm pretty sure it's not.
I know, but I had to get another joke in. Yeah. All right. And so a wisdom that surfaces, not through control, but through surrendering. Again, I think surrendering, we think of the white flag. That is not the case. It's humbling to surrender because you're seeing it. And then the beautiful thing is once you do that again, you start to resonate with it and it dissolves because you start to harmonize your energy with whatever it is. And it's no longer an issue. All right. Not through dogma, but through experience. Not through what these doctrines tell you to do, but what you've experienced when you're reading it. Does it bring peace to you? Does it make you feel better? You know, you want to feel better, not bitter. You want to feel bitter than have someone tell you what to do all the time. Feel better is when you start to see the light within you guiding your own path, and that you do not need anyone's approval to do so. Not through domination, but through compassion and insight. This is your reminder that the divine is not whole when one half of the expression is silence. That is a law of polarity exists in this realm. All right, fine. All right. Any questions on that? I did more talking this time than last time. Come on, wake up. It's been a humid day. So the next is not me. It's actually a shamanic divination. But I'm going to start deep diving into Gnostic writings in August. What's June? August, yes. Because I'm telling you, when you start to look at these things, and if you got to go, class over. When you start to look at these things, it really opens up doors. And you're like, wow. And when you're having a shitty day, it brings peace. Because it empowers you because you are divine. Now, again, it's not World of Warcraft or D&D. I'm not expecting you guys to go out and conquer the world. Just conquer your world. Meaning just conquer you and your doubt. That's your world. That is not your world. That's illusion. Doubt is something from within. Conquer the things within, the obstacles holding you back. That is a Gnostic approach. And don't believe me, believe yourself. But just try these and see if it doesn't make you feel better. If it doesn't, she read a whole one on you see it. This is a reincarnation, I swear to God. And see, because she read it a different way than she had read them before. You just start to see, and it may or may not be. But that's what she got. And guess what? That's the whole point of it. That's why they wrote so wildly, because it is not. If I was to write one sentence and it was meant for everyone in here to get it, that's the orthodox approach. But if I write one sentence and we have 4 to 5 disagreeing on, it means this to that's the Gnostic approach. Because guess what? Even though the 4 or 5 would disagree,
So
they're all right.
Do you know, I think this kind of just occurred to me. I know the class is over, but like, do you ever think because we're all working on different things when we come into incarnation, that maybe that's why it's that way? I mean, people are like, well, there should be a universal truth. Well, maybe there actually is somewhere up in the ether, right? But what is important is when you are when you are interpreting that for yourself, it's along with your own life.
And which I'm not saying it, but it kind of validates a reason or a story of the demiurge and the creation of this, because this has polarity. So you have to get rid of polarity for it to be absolute truth. So that's why this is a great academic universe.